This is the teacher Haris Bhatt and you are seeing my YouTube channel Learn Accounting with Sir Haris. Today we are going to solve a question from O levels accounting 7707 or you can say IGCSE 0452. And this question has come in October-November 2024, variant 22. October-November 2024, variant 22. And the topic is company accounts from O level and IGCSE. Okay, topic is company account. So let's start doing it. Y Limited is a public limited company. State one difference between a public limited company and a private limited company. I'm not going to write it down because we know that already, but I will repeat it. A public limited company is a company which can raise its capital by issuing shares to the general public, right? Whereas as a private limited company can issue shares only to relatives, friends, and these people. Secondly, public limited company shares are quoted in the stock exchange, whereas private limited company shares cannot be purchased from the stock market. Next, explain the difference between issued share capital and called up share capital. So let me write it down that, because that is an important point which generally students used to face a difficulty. I'm going to write it down. Explain the difference between issued share capital and called up share capital. I'm not saying this that if the question will come from company accounts, if the question that this question will come in the paper, I'm not saying this, but if the question will come from company account, then some part of some critical point of this question will definitely be a part of the question. That's what I'm talking about. And that's why we are doing this question. So explain the difference between issued share capital and called up share capital. So I'm going to write it down. Shares actually issued by the company. Spelling galat ho gaya, issued ke no problem. It's called issued share capital. Okay, then the amount company wants to raise, amount the company wants to raise from issued share capital. अब इसको ऐसे कर लो, the amount, यहाँ पे मुझे मैं थोड़ा चेंज करूं, अगर यहाँ पे लिख रहा हूँ बेटा मैं ऊपर, the part of the amount, okay, the part of the amount, इसके साथ ही है ना, shares actually issued by the company is called issued share capital, right? The part of the amount, the part of the amount company wants to raise from issued share capital and called up from shareholders is called up share capital. इसको I will repeat it again and I will make you understand also. You can also write this example in the paper also. For example, we basically decided to issue, or we have issued actually 10,000 shares at the rate of 1.2 each. Okay. So the amount we should get by the issue of share should be 12,000. That is issued share capital. But the company has asked the shareholders to whom the shares are issued that you don't need to pay the whole amount right now. The company is not going to ask the shareholders. The called up share capital is just not 10,000 shares, and for each share they are asking only 0.5 per share. So 5,000 is basically the called up share capital. So called up share capital means the amount which is basically the part of the amount out of issued share capital. The company wants to raise and ask the shareholders to pay. That is known as called up share capital. ये बिल्कुल बात सही है कि issued share capital can be equal to called up share capital, right? Issued share capital can be equal to called up share capital. Possible. but it can be difference also. There can be different. Both can be different also. How come? Issued share capital, यार वो शेयर है जो कंपनी ने शेयर इशू किए हैं. 10,000 इंटू 1.2 12,000 के पैसे मिलने चाहिए ना. शेयर इशू किए आपने. कंपनी कहती है शेयर होल्डर से ना 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 ना, डोंट वरी, आप अभी फिलहाल हमें 0.5 पर शेयर के हिसाब से पैसे दे दें, बाकी बाद में. तो आप 10,000 इंटू 0.5 करेंगे, विच इज 50,000 इज द अमाउंट ऑफ द issued share capital. This person wants to join the class, Sidra Shah. I don't know who is she, so I'm not going to let her in. If somebody knows her, you can tell me. Okay, next. State 2 benefits of operating as a limited.
Sir,
Yes.
it's Anna.
Okay. Okay, next is, I think you got the point actually. Okay, state 2 benefits of operating as a limited company. Obviously, you have a large, you can raise capital by issuing shares from the general public. Then you have a limited liability. The shareholders are liable to the extent of shares held by them, right? And third, the company has a perpetual succession and a common seal. You have studied all these in your business subject also. अच्छा, एक बात बड़ी इंपॉर्टेंट बतानी थी आपको बेटा. ऑलवेज रिमेंबर कि अगर आपको 2 बेनिफिट्स लिखे हैं और आप एक बेनिफिट लिख देते हैं 3 लफ्ज का, नंबर नहीं मिलेंगे आपको. You have to write a full statement. Statement means that you have to write the benefit with development. So development is there. I'm not talking about application. I'm not talking about evaluation, right? I'm talking about development only. Okay. I hope you got the point because you are a business students. तो आपको ये सब चीजें पता होंगी. आगे चलते हैं जी. Next part is why limited financial year ends on 31st December each year. On 1st January the company had, अब ये मैं obviously have to rub it up, मिटा रहा हूँ. 8 lakh ordinary share of $1 each issued and fully paid. 3 lakh 5% redeemable preference shares of 0.5 each. Retained earnings 62,000. General reserve 78,000. Why limited provided the following information. Proposed final ordinary share dividend of 43,000 for the year ended 31st December 2022 was paid on 31st March 2023. Number one thing, I have already made you realize most of the time that proposed dividend will not come in the accounts. It is just written as a footnote. It won't because it is not yet declared and approved in the annual general meeting. But this dividend is proposed last year and it is paid in the current year. So remember that dividend paid is recorded in the books. This is not proposed dividend. This is dividend paid. Okay, let me write it down. Proposed dividend of current year. Proposed dividend of current year will not be recorded. Will not be recorded in the books. Why? Let me write it down for you to make it more clear. आप भी लिखें. Will not be recorded in the books because it is not yet declared and approved by the shareholders. It is not declared and approved by the shareholders in the AGM, annual general meeting. में अभी तक ये approve नहीं हुए. लेकिन previous year dividend is paid in the current year. चाहे वो proposed ही क्यों ना हो, previous year dividend is paid in the current year and recorded in the books. क्योंकि dividend paid is always recorded in the books. We record only dividend paid. सिर्फ उसी को हम record करते. ये मैंने बता दिया. So here there is a new point, and the new point basically tells you that proposed final share dividend 43,000 for the year ended 31st December 2022 was paid on 31st March 2023. Beta, our financial year is of 23. So this will be recorded as paid dividend. Interim ordinary share dividend of 40,000 was paid on 30th September. ये भी आएगा. Interim means that is paid for some part of the months, some part of the year. 2 months, 3 months, because we have generated more profit in these months. Profit for the year on 31st December was 126,000 before the payment of preference share dividend, right? So profit for the year is given, and that is how much it is going to be, 126,000 before the payment of preference share dividend. Any preference share dividend is not yet subtracted from this amount. Next, on 31st December, the company decided to transfer 32,000 to general reserve and agree a final ordinary share dividend for the year of 6%. ये नहीं आएगा, हालांकि लिखा हुआ agreed, propose का word नहीं है बेटा. It is not yet paid because it is not yet approved in the annual general meeting. Only paid dividend is recorded in the books. ये पे नहीं हुआ, ये बेसिकली ये इस साल के एंड का प्रपोज डिविडेंड ही है, because it is agreed a final ordinary share dividend for the year of 6% which is supposed to be paid in 2024. तो भाई ये नहीं आएगा बुक्स में, क्योंकि ये डिक्लेयर तो किया आपने, रिकमेंड भी किया है, लेकिन पे तो नहीं किया. तो ये बुक्स में रिकॉर्ड 6% नहीं किया जाएगा. इन्होंने इस दफा इस सवाल के अंदर डिफरेंट टर्मिनोलॉजी, डिफरेंट लैंग्वेज यूज की, बच्चों को समझ नहीं आई थी बिल्कुल. अब हम चलते हैं अगली बात पे, प्रिपेयर द स्टेटमेंट ऑफ चेंजेस इन इक्विटी. सर लेकिन वो रिडीमेबल नॉन रिडीमेबल, अब उसी पे तो बात कर रहे हैं, पहले सवाल समझाऊंगा तो उस पर बात होगी ना. अब चलते हैं इधर, ये भी आपको लिखना पड़ेगा. ठीक है जी. रिडीमेबल प्रेफरेंस शेयर, redeemable preference shares. Okay, ठीक है. Dividend is supposed to be paid on both non-redeemable and redeemable preference shares, and obviously it is subtracted from the retained earnings or it is subtracted from the profit. That is quite fine, right? But redeemable preference shares, what does it mean? I'm writing it down. It is a non-current liability. Okay, it is a non-current liability and should not be recorded. Should not be recorded. It is a non-current liability and should not be recorded under equity. It is not a part of equity. Yes, it's something new for you. कभी सुना ही नहीं आपने. Because this is a new thing which has come in the syllabus and in the exam also. So redeemable preference share is a non-current liability. It will be written under the statement of financial position under the heading of non-current liability. So it will not come in equity section at all. इसका जो डिविडेंड है वो आपको पे करना है. That's fine. Then non-redeemable preference shares. It is a part of equity, right? And written in the statement of changes in equity. स्टेटमेंट ऑफ चेंजेस इन इक्विटी में भी आएगा और बैलेंस शीट में भी आएगा, इक्विटी सेक्शन में. ये फर्क हमने पढ़ा कि रिडीमेबल प्रेफरेंस शेयर इज नॉन करंट लायबिलिटी and should not be recorded under equity. Non-redeemable preference share is a part of equity and there will be written in the statement of changes in equity as we used to write shares. अब सर फर्क क्या है इसमें? रिडीमेबल प्रेफरेंस शेयर्स का मतलब है बेटा कि जिन लोगों को हमने प्रेफरेंस शेयर इशू किए हैं उनको ये पैसे हमने वापस करने हैं. They are redeemable. You have to pay back that amount. So it becomes a non-current liability. लेकिन जिनको हमने नॉन रिडीमेबल प्रेफरेंस शेयर इशू किए हैं उनको हमने वो प्रेफरेंस शेयर वापस नहीं करने, डिविडेंड तो देना है, ठीक है, लेकिन उनके वापस करने की कोई म्याद, कोई मुद्दत, कोई डिसीजन अभी तक मौजूद नहीं है, इसलिए वो इक्विटी में आएंगे और वो नॉन करंट लायबिलिटी का हिस्सा होंगे. अब चलते हैं आगे. लेकिन सर डिविडेंड भी तो होता है ना. यस, लेट्स सपोज 6% डिविडेंड हमें दिया हुआ है. सॉरी 6% प्रेफरेंस शेयर्स देने में ठीक है जी, कितने जी, 1 लाख। ठीक है, अब प्रेफरेंस डिविडेंड निकाल लेते हैं बेटा। 1 लाख इंटू 6%, पर शेयर भी होता है डिविडेंड, लेकिन ये परसेंटेज में दिया हुआ है, तो दैट विल बी कैलकुलेटेड ऑन द अमाउंट ऑफ शेयर कैपिटल। फिर से सुन ले, रिपीट कर रहा हूं। Percentage of dividend if given, that will be calculated on the amount of share capital. But if the dividend is paid per share, then you have to calculate, find the number of shares, and then you will multiply the number of shares with the per share dividend to find the amount of dividend. But here the percentage is given 6% preference shares, 1 lakh into 6%, that is going to be 6,000. अब ये बात बड़ी इंपॉर्टेंट है, अगर वो यहाँ पे लिखा हो प्रेफरेंस डिविडेंड पेड, क्वेश्चन में दिया हो 3,000, ऐसा सवाल बहुत पहले आता रहा है, 11, 12, 13 में आता रहा है। 14 के तरह का सवाल ये उसने क्वेश्चन में दिया है। अभी मैंने डिस्कस भी किया था आपसे कि अक्टूबर नंबर 14 में आया, एंड देन इट हैज कम इन अक्टूबर नंबर 2024। लेकिन ये पॉइंट इसमें नहीं है, तो ये मैं सिखाना पड़ेगा मुझे। तो 1 लाख 6%, 6%। फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल लेट्स डिस्कस अबाउट व्हाट आर प्रेफरेंस शेयर्स। Preference shares and ordinary shares are different. On what reasons? That ordinary shares are the owners of the business, and preference shares are not the owners. They don't. They are not the, you know, what should I say, the actual risk bearers, because ordinary shareholders will have voting right, working right. Preference shareholders को नहीं होता, and they will get fixed dividend. Ordinary shareholders dividend vary with the amount of profit, with the performance of the business. It means that we have to pay 6% of 1 lakh at any cost, which is 6,000. अब हमने 6,000 ही पे करना है। अगर आपने प्रेफरेंस शेयर डिविडेंड कोई पे किया हुआ है, चाहे वो इंटरम हो, जो मर्जी हो, 3,000 पे किया हुआ है, तो बाकी कितना और पे करना है आपको? आपको बाकी 3,000 और पे करना है। यानी प्रेफरेंस डिविडेंड जो आप पे करोगे वो 6,000 से ज्यादा नहीं हो सकता, चाहे पहले पे कर दिया आपने 3,000, ये 3,000 पेड लिखा हुआ है या नहीं लिखा हुआ, इट हैज टू बी 6,000, बिकॉज on preference share we used to pay fixed dividend. तो वो 3,000 में 6,000 और नहीं लिखेंगे। ऑर्डिनरी डिविडेंड में क्या होता है, वो फाइनल ऑर्डिनरी डिविडेंड इज पेड एट द एंड ऑफ द ईयर, और वो परसेंटेज हम अलग कैलकुलेट करते हैं। अगर इंटरम है तो वो अलग पे करते हैं। लेकिन प्रेफरेंस डिविडेंड इन टोटल में कभी भी फिक्स की अमाउंट से ज्यादा नहीं हो सकता। अगर यहाँ पे ये 3,000 ना लिखा होता तो आई वुड हैव पेड 6,000 इन टोटल। 3,000 is paid, I will write 3,000 which is paid and 3,000 more which is supposed to be paid. But in total it will remain 6,000. Now let's go back to the question and solve this question, which is basically has been asked in the exam. We have to prepare the statement of changes in equity. Students have found it very difficult. Why, sir? They said that sir, preference shares were not given in there is no column of preference shares. होना भी नहीं था। वजह, भाई ये प्रेफरेंस शेयर जो थे ये रिडीमेबल थे। दिस शुड बी रिकॉर्डेड अंडर द हेडिंग ऑफ नॉन करंट लायबिलिटी, इट इज नॉट ए पार्ट ऑफ इक्विटी। नॉन रिडीमेबल होते तो मैं वही लिखता, तो यहां पड़ गया रौला। सो 8 लाख इंटू 1, that is the ordinary share capital, and 3 lakh into 0.5. Always remember the redeemable preference share per face value of the share, per share value is 0.5, that is 150,000. Retained earnings 62 and general reserve 78,000. So let's write it down. I will write ordinary share capital is 8 lakh, general reserve is 62,000, and retained earning is 78,000. Can you please tell me the total? 8 lakh plus 62,000 plus 78,000. What is the total amount? G. 9,40,000. Okay. So the total is going to be 9,40,000. Okay. Now let's move back. लेकिन सर आपने प्रेफरेंस शेयर तो लिखे ही नहीं है। Preference shares will not come over here because it's a non-current liability. It has an amount of 1,50,000, 3 lakh into 0.5, but it is a non-current liability. It will not come over here. But you have to write profit for the year. And this profit is given before the payment of, just a minute. Yes, this profit is given before the payment of preference dividend. You have to subtract preference dividend from the profit first. 126,000. What is the dividend? Dividend 1,50,000 into 5%. That is going to be 7,500. Sir, wo kaise? Wow. 3 lakh shares are there and every share per share price is 0.5. So 3 lakh into 0.5, the amount of preferred share capital is 1,50,000 and the dividend is 5%. So that is 7,500. I'm going to subtract 7,500 from 126,000 to find the profit for the year. What is the amount? That is 118,500. I will write here 118,500. Now let's go back towards the part what we require over here. I will write beta profit for the year. लिमिट क्यों गया? चलो मैं भी लिखूंगा. I will write here profit, that is retained earnings. Obviously it will come under the heading of retained earnings, under the column of retained earnings. This is 8 lakh. General reserve is 62,000. That's why I'm going to write it again. And the retained earnings is going to be 78,000 and total is 9,40,000. Okay. Now let's see. There is transfer to general reserve. Okay. Let's write it down. Transfer to general reserve. What is the amount of transfer to general reserve? That is 32,000. So I will write here. Transfer to general reserve, 32,000. What I'm going to do, I will subtract this transfer from retained earnings column. It will be subtracted from here. And it will be added in general reserve column. There is no change in equity. General reserve is basically getting high and retained earnings is going to be going low. Now, I'm going to write the interim dividend and the final dividend if given in the question. Let's see. Interim ordinary share dividend 40,000 was paid on 30th September 2023. So I'm going to write here the interim dividend, which will be subtracted from retained earnings, and that is going to be 40,000. I will write here also 40,000. And then I'm going to write the final dividend, and final dividend is, that is proposed final ordinary share dividend 43,000 for the year was paid on 31st March. This is not proposed dividend. This is basically dividend paid in the current year. It needs to be recorded in the books of account. So I will record this dividend, which is going to be 43,000. I will write here 43,000. Also come in the total column, obviously, 43,000. And then I'm going to go for the total of this to record the answer, which is basically required in the question, because I just want to go for the total of the column. 975500. Okay, let me check. Sorry. Retained earnings are 62,000. General reserve are 78,000. Okay. And the total is fine. Total is fine. Total is 9,40,000. 8 lakh. General reserve is 78,000. And retained earnings is 62,000. Okay. And the total is 9,40,000. Okay. Now I'll go for the total of this. Let's do that. So that is going to be the, what should I say? Proposed final dividend is paid, but the dividend has been agreed. That is supposed to be paid in the next year. It will not come. 78 plus 32,000 is going to be 1,10,000. What is the total of retained earnings? Please tell me. 62,000 plus 118500 minus 32,000 minus 40,000 minus 43,000. Yes, please. 65500. Okay. I will write here 65500. And then the total, what it is? 975500. That's what you have written in the column also, if I'm not wrong. Okay, right? 975500. Okay. So we are done with the statement of changes in equity. So you have to be very vigilant regarding preference shares and redeemable preference shares and non-redeemable preference shares. Okay? ऐसा ना हो कि you will do it wrong in the exam. If it is given non-redeemable preference share, then you have to write it in the equity section. It will come. But redeemable preference share is a non-current liability. But you have to subtract preference shares or preference dividend from the profit. ठीक है? It's quite easy क्योंकि यहाँ preference share का column भी तो नहीं दिया हुआ ना. इसका मतलब है कि ठीक है, हमने इसको solve जो है वो कर लिया. Next, using the information from your statement of changes in equity, in 4D, prepare an extract from the statement of financial position at 31st December showing the equity and reserve section only. Now I'm going to show the equity and reserve section. Let's see that how we are going to show the equity and reserve section for this particular question. Let me show you here. So remember this, that equity and reserve section will not include preference shares. Thank God he has not asked us to prepare the non-current liability section also. Otherwise, redeemable preference shares will come under non-current liability section. I will write 8 lakh. Then it's a simple way. Whatever you have written, you will write it in the row wise. General reserve will come. That is 1,10,000. Then comes the retained earnings. That is going to be 65,500. And the total equity and reserve section, we have already calculated 975500. But if we have to write non-current liability, so always remember that it is a possibility that we have to write non-current liabilities. Then you have to write redeemable preference shares in this. And there also comes debenture if given in the question. I'm just writing it for the purpose that you will be able to understand that 8% debenture does come in the non-current liability section. That is 1,50,000. ये मैंने बस ऐसे ही लिखवा दिया, but it was not required. But I just write it down to make you understand that this could be part of this particular scenario, which I have already solved it for you. Only 2 marks are given for that. Next, the company is considering expansion but needs to raise additional finance to do so. They are considering either issuing additional ordinary share or debentures. Advise the board of directors whether they should issue additional ordinary shares or debenture to raise the additional finance required. So first of all, what we used to see about the theoretical question, we want to see the marks. There are 5 marks, right? So 2 points for debenture and 2 points for ordinary share. Either positive, negative will be accepted, and then 1 for the decision. So if we are going to issue ordinary shares, obviously we have to pay dividend, right? But there is no decrease in profit because dividend is paid only when according to the performance of the business. And profit will not decrease because dividend is not subtracted from profit, it is subtracted from retained earnings, right? Then ordinary shares will also result in dilution of ownership, right? But it is a permanent source of capital. It is a permanent source of capital. Whereas debenture is not a permanent source of capital, it is temporary source of capital because debenture is a non-current liability. It has to be repaid at some stage, and we have to pay interest on debenture also, which will increase our expense and decrease profit. Then, if we want to issue debenture, we have to maybe give some collateral or security, or there are some legal requirements for which we have to show our financial statements also. So secrecy will not be maintained and collateral has to be given also, right? So I will go that we should go with the ordinary shares because that is not supposed to be paid back. It's a permanent source of capital. That is a better option because it is always remember that we have already issued redeemable preference shares on which we are paying fixed dividend. It is a non-current liability, right? So ordinary share is a better option because we have to pay dividend only when we are going to have a profit, right? Name the section heading in a company's statement of financial position where debentures would be included. It is under the heading of non-current liability. We will write the dividend under the heading of non-current liability, right? So this is the end of the question. And thank you very much. Always remember that trade receivable and trade payable turnover ratio, the formula is going to be trade receivable over credit sale into 365. And for trade payable, the formula is trade payable over credit purchases into 365. Just for the sake of. Any question you want to ask? Otherwise, we are done with that. Thank you very much for coming. So if company will come, the redeemable preference shares will come. Okay. Thank you. Okay, then Allah Hafiz.